Hey there, welcome to My Green Pets. I'm William Green. We are pretty much completely bloomed out on Mormodia Jumbo World here. Looking great with 86 flowers. Mostly open, a few towards the bottom there, not completely, but for all intents and purposes, it's completely bloomed out. Looks pretty good. You know what's funny? When I look at this, all I can think of is I should have let the plant do what it wanted to do because when it was growing out its spikes, this spike actually tried to come down this direction. And I kind of nudged it over and caused it to go down here, but look what happened. This spike actually kind of bloomed on top of this other spike. And if I had let the plant do what it wanted, it would have come down here and filled in this space that is just stem. And this spike kind of ends right as this one is beginning. So it would have been a nice, continuous train of flowers all through the middle there. And you would have been able to see the two side spikes equally. So I need to trust the plant that sometimes I don't need to interfere, and it can make things look very nice on its own. But it is pretty nice. If I let it go another year without dividing it, then we could potentially get 4 bulbs next year, 3 to 4, maybe even more bulbs, and there's about 40 flowers per bulb. So this year, only 2 blooming bulbs put out 86 flowers. So we will have to see what we can come up with next year. Of course, the plant will be enormous, so it will be a question of where I'm gonna stick it. But for the most part, I'm very happy with it. And I actually took this plant. This is Clowesia Rebecca Northen Grapefruit Pink. Unfortunately, the flowers are a little bit burnt because I got a little bit excited with the Fizan disinfectant a couple weeks ago. But anyway, it's still, they have opened up, and I actually took some pollen out of this plant and put it into this flower. So I've never had a cross take with any of my Cattleya. I've tried various crosses over the year. Nothing's ever taken, so it'll be interesting to see if that works. But just kind of for fun, I would definitely, have it flasked and get some seedlings out of it if it did actually go through with producing seed. But for right now, it's just for fun, to see what will happen. I have actually started repotting my Cattleya types. So this one is the first guy. This is the Rebecca Northen that bloomed about a month ago. And I have put it in an air cone pot and sphagnum the first layer, and then some fine grade bark in the middle, and then some granite rocks at the bottom. So these things really aren't terribly picky about what you pot them in, but I thought I would give this a try, see how it does this year, and we'll go from there. Signal case, Cooperi, we're going to leave it in the same container that it's in. Still has lots of room, and it's actually still growing roots. You can see the roots down there still growing really actively. But we're done watering this guy for the year, and we're done watering the Cloesias. I gave this guy one last good drench yesterday. Just drenched all the media and everything, and that's going to be it for this year as well. No more water for that. And then these guys, these Signoches that I got from Sunset Valley Orchids in October, these are all also done for the season. No more water for them until their new growths are pretty well grown up. So, and I'll probably repot these guys because they're pretty big. I mean, this Varsavicii is pretty massive for the little tiny pot that it's in. So we're gonna put that one in a new one. It had a spike, but that's not gonna make it. So these guys are done. New pots, bigger pots for them, so that next year hopefully we can get them back on schedule and get some nice flowers out of them. Not a whole lot else going on. Of course, several of the Cattleyas have already started putting out new bloom, or new growth, sorry, like this Cattleya hardiana. This growth is well underway. all the seedlings have new growth pushing. And the adult plants, the Rexes, I expect new growth coming out of those shortly. You can already see some new roots poking out there. Cattleya maxima, of course, we've been looking at this the past few weeks. Already well developed new growth. The leaves are actually starting to poke out on these. And the way this plant typically grows for me, or has grown the last 3 years, is that it'll put out a flush of new growth in the winter. That will mature, and then that new growth will just kind of sit there. And then in the spring, it'll put out more growths. And then this past year, they all bloomed at the same time in September. So if it wants to do a repeat performance of that this year, 3 new growths right now. Maybe we'll get 2 or 3 more growths in the spring. 5, 6 growths all ready to bloom next fall. I'll be a happy camper. We'll have lots and lots of flowers on that guy. I've been thinking about this Cattleya Rex. So I had 2 Cattleya Rexes that were mounted. The other one was Orchid, which is no longer in my collection, but Uno and Nina, very healthy plants. But I'm starting to wonder if the clay somehow draws moisture out of the roots, because I don't keep it super humid in here. I mean, as you can see right now, it's 50% humidity, and sometimes it's less. Sometimes it's in the 30s. And I try to err on the side of dryness, but I wonder if a super dry clay pot, because of the way that the roots are kind of attached to the side of the pot, I wonder if the clay doesn't actually draw moisture out of the plant, because that's been something that I've been wondering about for a couple of years now. My mounted Rexes sitting in clay pots seem to never be able to get their bulbs really big and fat, and sometimes seem extra shriveled, even though they're receiving the same amount of water as other plants. And I'm just wondering, is it the pot itself pulling moisture out of the plant? So the more roots that attach to the pot, I wonder if that translates to more dehydration. So I'm kind of keeping an eye on that. If on the one hand it would be a relief, because it means the plant's completely healthy. It's just a kind of a functional mechanical problem with water being drawn out, not any kind of disease or something like that. But a big plant like this that gets watered fairly often just shouldn't have these wrinkly leaves and wrinkly bulbs that you see on it. So I'll keep an eye on that. These are tricky because I can't water them more often. What happens is the media at the bottom of the pot, the mount and the roots and everything just kind of stay wet down there, and that's not the kind of environment that I want them to be in. So ideally, this pot would have drain holes, more drain holes, and more ventilation holes around the bottom there, and then I could water it more frequently and be okay. But I wonder if it wouldn't be a better idea to pull this completely out of the clay pot, tear up some roots in the process, but future roots won't be stuck to that clay and potentially dehydrated. Now, in a high humidity environment, I don't think it would be an issue, but again, because my humidity can be pretty low here, we're down to 49 already just with the tent open, I wonder if that is the issue with all my Cattleyas in clay pots. The mounted plants, this is Cattleya rosita. This is another mounted one, and I hope that one day this will follow in the footsteps of this plant, and it will just keep growing along this cork mount. You can see a lot of the roots. As soon as I put the plant on there, within a month or two, it had already attached lots of roots. So I'm hoping it will continue that, and it's got a nice new growth coming up back here. So really looking forward to that next growth coming up, getting really big, attaching more firmly. And I might set this as well in a plastic pot to give it some stability. I have 2 of these. This is a selfing of the Rogue Orchids Rosita, which is absolutely spectacular plant. I have this one, and then I have another one over here that I'm growing in a pot in bark. So I'm kind of hedging my bets, growing the same, well, they're siblings, but growing them 2 different ways in the same environment to kind of, if it does tend to do better one way or another, then I won't lose them. But they both seem to be okay. This one's really rooting nicely in its pot. And I just took its old little pot and popped it in, so we'll see how that works. But overall, I can't complain. The seedlings are really looking nice. Even these Genmanii seedlings that were severely dehydrated because their roots were just rotted to nothing in the greenhouse where they were living, they actually seem to be recovering. Especially this one, you can see the new growth actually looks pretty good on it. So once that gets new roots going out, it should be back. So that's exciting. These guys, this is the Pulcherima and the Purpurata from Christofferson. Many of you bought seedling from this batch back early in November, and these are the two that I kept. So they look good. This is a Mossii putting out tons of roots as well. And then here's some little Cattleya rexes of my own breeding that are, again, they're ready to be separated out and put in their own pots. And maybe, I probably won't keep all of those. Probably in the spring I'll have some of those up for sale. This Bulbophyllum Lovely Elizabeth, haven't talked a whole lot about it recently, but it didn't bloom this year. It's putting out a beautiful new growth here. I'm hoping that's going to be a nice big one, and then we might get some blooms out that next year. And then Bulbophyllum Lepidum, you can see some new growth coming out here and down here as well. So very good to see some new growth on these guys. They don't like to be repotted, so when I took them out of their previous containers and put them in this basket, I left everything intact. I didn't pull off any of the old medium. I just placed them in here, sprinkled the fine bark mix around them, and I haven't seen any bulb shrinkage or any signs that they've been set back. So that's very, very good, and hopefully the new growths will root and they can just pick right up where they left off. That's great. This Dendrochilum tenellum, now Coelogyne tenella, is still working on its little spikes. You can see them just getting slightly bigger every week, and really looking forward to those first flowers popping out. I'm not sure how long they'll last. I expect they'll last not super long, maybe a week or so, but it'll be nice. It kind of reminds me of those fiber optic toys that you have that has the lights, you know, at the tips. But it'll be nice to have those little sprays of white all over. Really, really nice. And that's about it. Otherwise, it's just Cattleya seedlings all over the place. These Cattleya Rex seedlings from Peru Flora, these were deflasked in May of 2020, I believe. So 2 years out of flask in May, and I said I would repot them when they were crawling out of the pot. I think we're getting to that point. We're starting to look at, we're starting to be at that point of a little too crowded. A little too crowded in there. Might be time for their own pot. So I mean, that alone is probably 3-4 plants, maybe even more. So I might, depending on how many we get out of here, I might actually be to the point where I need to sell off another batch of Peru Flora seedlings. And as some of you brought to my attention, the coveted Flammea flower form of Rex is apparently very, very rare. Even if you cross two Flammeas, only, you know, a small percentage of those offspring are said to actually come out Flammea as well. So we'll see. There's lots of different forms, 5 different color forms in that batch. So we will see what ends up happening. Got to get them to bloom size first. Then we'll nitpick about the color forms that made it. But I'm really excited to have some genetic diversity in my Rex collection, because up until now everything has been sibling to each other and could possibly have been from a selfing. So some genetic diversity, always a good thing. Alright guys, I think that's all I have for you today. Congratulations to Argentina on winning the World Cup. France, you played a great game. I did kind of wonder why all of the star players got pulled out of the game pretty early, honestly. But they really turned it on towards the end of the second half, and it was extremely exciting final. Sad that they lost, but I'm also glad for Argentina. They're only their third World Cup title, and I think 1986 was the last time they won. So, congratulations to you guys. Enhorabuena. All right, guys, that is it for this week. Have a great one. Have happy holidays, all of you, and we will see you next time right here on My Green Pets. I'm William Green. Bye.